Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1564B, and today's date is May 9th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Evil Has Lost Control. The Deal Silenced Everyone. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Trump has come out blasting NBC News, and again, we know all these corporate media news sites, they are controlled by the deep state. And they push a certain agenda where they push out propaganda because the United States is allowed to use propaganda on the American people. And basically they cite anonymous sources and they make up a lot of different things because someone told them something. There's no real work behind it where they're looking into what is really going on, if that is really true. Just like a real news site should do, they shouldn't just believe what someone says. They should really look into what else is going on and basically get the real evidence. And we're seeing that NBC News, they were talking about how Trump was not going to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal because they had sources in the inside. And Trump came out and said, hey, this is fake news. Basically the same fake news that CNN is. And basically he's out there saying, listen, maybe we should remove the press credentials over this negative coverage and all of this fake news and give it to other news agency. So we can see right now that the deep state, they still have control of the corporate media. And it looks like the corporate media has lost all sense of how to report real news and how to do investigative reporting. And they can't do it anymore because all they've been doing has been receiving a script from the propaganda outlets, and that's what they've been going by. And he's continually calling them out on it. And this is why all the fact-checking and everything else never really worked, because, again, who are you going to fact-check this against? I mean, you're going to look at the fact-checkers who are also controlled by the intelligence agencies, who are also getting their information from there? I mean, go back in time. The alternative media was out there saying that the Islamic State, they are being supported, funded by the intelligence agencies, the deep state operatives, and the corporate media was out there saying these are real terrorist groups. And yes, Obama is bombing inside of Syria to stop the Islamic State. Now, who is truly telling the real story here? Because under Obama, the Islamic State, well, they gained ground and they took more and more territory, pushing closer and closer to Damascus. And when Trump came in, when actually Russia came in, they actually destroyed the Islamic State. We've seen McCain with Al-Qaeda and the other terrorist groups. So once again, the corporate media, they spew whatever the deep state tells them to spew. And again, all the fact-checking and everything else is absolutely meaningless because you go back in time and you find out they lied. We see right now that Pompeo, he is returning with the U.S. citizens held in North Korea. They are now back on their way back to Washington. It looks like they'll be landing at Andrews Air Force Base around 2 a.m. And it looks like the president is going to greet them when they land. And this shows that North Korea definitely wants to talk about peace. They want to go ahead. They already had a meeting with Xi Jinping about denuclearization. Pompeo said that North Korea's release of the 3 U.S. citizens would be a great gesture, which they've already done. And at this point, this is all said and done. I believe that this peace deal was already taken care of in the Forbidden City when Trump went over there. And this is just for everyone else to show that, look, we're going to have peace. And you can see with the drills that are going on, North Korea is not even doing anything. They have an understanding right now, and it is working. We see out in Armenia, remember Q said we're going to North Korea, then Armenia, then Iran. Well, Armenia right now, we see, is ready to begin diplomatic relations with Turkey without preliminary conditions. We also see the new Prime Minister from the opposition. They are ready to work with Russia, with Putin, and basically they want to have a relationship. So we can see things are definitely moving forward in the right direction. Obama was out there talking about the Iran nuclear deal. saying that this is going to start an arms race. Well, this is kind of ridiculous because Obama, Kerry, Clinton, the deep state, they were demonizing Russia. Didn't they start an arms race with Russia? And isn't that a lot worse than starting an arms race with Iran, which is not happening? He's just floundering right now because they don't know what to do. Kerry was using shadow diplomacy, going around trying to work with all these different leaders, trying to keep this deal intact. There's a reason why they are so worried, why they were pushing so hard to keep this specific deal intact, where they didn't want this whole thing to be broken up, where people can go in and dissect it and find out what was really going on here. Because this had nothing to do with protecting the country, stopping war. This had to do with what they were up to, with the slush funds, money laundering, by pushing uranium to certain areas to create nuclear weapons. This really has nothing to do with Iran. What the Iran deal did was it kind of silenced everyone because they were receiving funds. And once this is removed, well, maybe Iran and those individuals can speak out about what was really going on here. We see right now that with this whole thing with Trump pulling out of the Iranian deal, I know a lot of people are talking about war and how they're saying that we're going to be going to war. Now it's World War III, we're going to war. Again, Russia and China are on the other side here. And if we really wanted World War III, we would have just had it in North Korea, we would have just had it in Syria. World War III would have started already from all the things that have been happening here. But we had peace in North Korea. That's kind of odd because they were talking about World War III in North Korea. When Trump fired the missiles into Syria, we were talking about World War III. But did that happen? No. Trump's actually still talking about bringing the troops home. That he's trying to maneuver and figure out a strategy, which I think they've already figured out, on how to get the troops home. And I keep hearing the same message in North Korea, that the troops in North Korea are not part of the peace deal. No, they're not part of the peace deal. That's going to come afterwards, where they say, okay, the peace deal is done. You know what? Let's talk about the troops. Let's bring a couple of them home. And that's how it starts. And that's what they're going to do. Again, the deep state, they don't want the troops removed because they've been planning on something else. They've been planning on war. And they want all the troops around the world to hold their system in place. Now, we know that Israel's report about Iran, violating the nuclear deal, that's completely fake, phony, and false. I mean, think about it. They want us to believe, even though Trump is out there. Remember, POTUS, he never telegraphs what he's going to do. He's going to use what he needs to tell the corporate media, to tell the world what is going on. And in the background, do something completely different. Now think about this. Israel got the most sensitive national security documents and compact discs in an unguarded desert hut. And this Israeli crack team of intelligence operatives, they were able to discover and remove by the truckload right under the noses of what they claim is the most totalitarian regimes on earth. They were able to get all these documents. I mean, think about this for a second. And many people have reviewed the documents, and there's nothing in there. They're using this. Now, they're calling Iran the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. Really? Now, we know this is also fake, phony, and false, because we know Al-Qaeda. Who visited Al-Qaeda? Oh, McCain. Graham. Who supported the Islamic State? Obama. Hillary. The deep state, the intelligence agencies. Who supported al-Nusra? Al-Shabaab. Moderate rebels. Syrian Democratic Forces. Guess what? Those are all terrorist groups. Actually, the United States recognizes al-Nusra, al-Shabaab, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda as terrorist groups. So who is supporting those? Well, we know the intelligence agencies, the deep state, have been supporting these groups. Iran has not. Remember, Iran was invited into Syria to fight with the Syrian army, just like Russia was invited into Syria to fight with the Syrian army. The United States was not invited in. The French forces were not invited in. The UK forces were not invited in. They invaded Syria to help their terrorist groups. Remember, during the period with Obama, the Islamic State gained ground because the United States was the air force for the terrorist groups. And right now, Iran was invited into Syria to help fight terrorism. So all of this and what they're saying is completely fake, phony, and false. Even the UN watchdog, the IAEA, they're saying, no, Iran, they have basically stuck to the deal. They are not creating nuclear weapons. And I believe that this is not about nuclear weapons. This is about going after the deep state operatives. And this is not about war, because if you really listen to what Trump has been saying, is that he wants a new deal. He wants the old deal to be thrown out and a new deal to be brought in. And this is what he was talking to Macron about, talking to Merkel about, and other leaders, saying that we need to do something different than that old deal, because that old deal stinks. And there's a reason why it stinks, because it was basically used to funnel money. And this is what they were using it for. Now, as soon as Trump mentioned that he's basically getting out of the Iranian deal, Israel decided to fire missiles into Syria. And Israel does this quite a bit. And Israel is saying that they hit an Iranian base. And Syria is saying, well, not so fast, because our missile systems hit 2 of the missiles that were incoming. They're saying from the debris, 2 people actually died. And they're not confirming that this was an Iranian base. And they actually have video footage of their missile systems intercepting the other missiles. And they're saying it was a local man and his wife that were killed in the explosion. So once again, we don't have all the reports in. I know they were saying like 8 Iranians, 6 Iranians. I mean, how do they know they're Iranian? I mean, where are they getting this information? They took pictures. They have their names. They know their nationality. They know their fingerprints. I mean, how do they know this? You think the Syrians would know a little bit better because they're on the ground there. But once again, we can see they're just pushing an agenda. And I think Israel right now, their agenda is really to go after Assad and remove Assad, then go into Iran. And this was the plan since the beginning. They're still part of the deep state. This is their goal. Trump, the Patriots, their goal is a little bit different. And I think they're using Israel to reach their goals. And if you notice, Netanyahu had to visit Putin because he went in and he fired missiles. And Putin, he knows what's going on. He understands that Israel would like to get Assad and remove Assad and then go into Iran. China, Russia, they're not letting this happen. There's no way. And I don't think this is the plan of Trump and the Patriots, because if we look at the New Q Post, 1319, May 8th, 2018, it says, today, evil lost control, leverage of Iran. Today, POTUS took control of Iran. Today, with pending sanctions and military actions, POTUS will gain more ammunition, intel against them. And he says suicide watch. Suicide watch for who? Most likely the deep state operatives and a lot of the puppets that are out there. The deal kept Iran quiet. Now think about this for a second. The deal that was made with Obama, with John Kerry, who's using shadow diplomacy, going around the world, trying to keep this deal the way it is with Europe, this kept Iran quiet. If the deal is gone, Iran's leaders would be able to speak freely. Now, this brings me back to North Korea with Kim Jong-un. Remember when he left North Korea for the first time ever, where he had the freedom to leave the country and not fear that his country would be taken over? Because he never left the country. I think the same thing's happening with Iran right now, where the deal is being pushed aside, even though Europe is trying to keep this deal together. Macron, Merkel, and the rest they're doing everything they possibly can to keep this deal. And if they can't keep this deal, Iran, well, they'll be able to speak freely. Now, Q went on to say the goal was to keep POTUS in until impeachment or term end. Bigger than people can imagine. Treason is 1/10. Ask yourself, why are they panicking? And yes, UK, France, Germany, they're all involved, and they are panicking. Q wants us to think, who visited the White House in the last couple of months? Well, we know Shinzo Abe visited April 17, 2018. We know Macron visited the White House April 23, 2018. We know Merkel visited the White House April 27, 2018, and they were trying to convince Trump to stay in the Iranian deal. What are they hiding? Q also asks, why is Hillary Clinton in New Zealand? Is New Zealand part of Five Eyes? Well, the Five Eyes, they consist of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Why is this relevant? Well, we need to go back to Drop 1286. Remember the raw intel, the dossier, all that evidence would be there in the Five Eyes. They would have the information of where it came from, but guess what? They don't. They have other evidence of what has been going on. Why is Hillary in New Zealand right now? Is she using data from there or listening in to find out more information? Is she collecting data? Maybe. Nunes says there was no official Five Eyes intelligence on any collusion at all. So right there it tells us they have nothing. But there's a reason why Hillary Clinton is in New Zealand. And actually, I think she said she might even stay in New Zealand. She was making a joke. If Trump won, she'd move to New Zealand. Very interesting. And I do believe that she's there and she has her contacts there and she's using the data, the information, because other countries can spy on other countries with the Five Eyes. And I think she's trying to find out as much as she possibly can. Again, Q says suicide watch. Watch these individuals. They might start to commit suicide, especially when they are brought in for military tribunals or they're captured or they know their time is up. We mentioned this before where they might suicide themselves. They might go into hiding, but I think they will not be able to hide that well because we have eyes and ears all over the place and we can most likely find them. So we see right now that everything is moving very, very quickly. We knew that North Korea, then Armenia, now Iran. I know it looks dark. A lot of people are thinking that we're heading to war. Everyone thinks that the United States is teaming up with Israel. We're going to attack Iran. We're going to see World War III. Listen, if World War III happens and we attack Iran, guess what? All bets are off because Russia's going to get involved, China's going to get involved, and we're going to have nuclear war. I mean, really, that's what's going to happen. Because there's no way the United States can just go ahead, or Israel, and just bomb Iran. That is an act of war. Syria, it's a little different. Because with Syria, the whole country was a complete mess with terrorists and things like that. And they're still using the excuse that they're allowed to be in there to fight terrorism. But that's winding down now. Terrorism is pretty much almost gone. And this is why Israel takes pot shots at Syria. They're still trying to get Assad out of power. Even the Israeli government officials are in there saying that we need to remove Assad at all costs. So they're still pushing that goal. They're still doing what they set out to do. Get into Syria, then go to Iran. That hasn't stopped at all. And I think right now, this is not about war. This is about looking into this deal, flushing out the deep state, looking into the slush funds, seeing what they're doing with the uranium, what they're really building, what they've been setting up. Because remember, if we go back a couple of posts with Q, they were actually there and they were going to create the illusion that Russia was starting a nuclear war. And they were going to try to pin it all on Russia, and that was their plan. And we could see from going back in time, this is why they were demonizing Russia for a very long time. But we see that things are headed in the right direction. The plan is going as planned, unless the deep state does something like a huge event. And this is the only way that war would start, if they create this false flag to convince the world that Iran did something. Iran is not going to attack anyone. They haven't attacked anyone in 200 years. They haven't started a war in 200 years. Yes, if they're attacked, they will attack. But if they do, if Israel decides to attack or the U.S. decides to attack Iran, all bets are off, because that will start World War III. And it doesn't look like Trump is heading in that direction. I know he's saying that there'll be huge consequences if they continue on with the uranium enrichment. But he also said this with North Korea, that there'll be huge consequences. Consequences can mean anything. It could mean that they'll add on a couple more sanctions. It doesn't mean that we're going to war. but everyone takes it as we're going to war, just like with North Korea. So I think what's happening right now is that this plan needs to be reworked. He wants a new plan to be put into the place of the old plan and actually then go in and flush out what these individuals are doing and allow the Iranian government to speak freely in what was going on, just in the same way that Kim Jong-un was able to leave his country for the first time ever and not feel that threat that his country would be taken over or maybe he would be killed. And I think the same thing is happening right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.